born May 26th, 1877. Isadora Duncan was a fabulous and innovative and creative dancer. And that is shown in her natal chart by things like Mercury and Venus in a conjunction in Gemini. Actually, the Sun is included in that conjunction, so this all benefits Venus, which is the sign of the artist and of beauty, enhancing beauty in every way. And also another aspect to go with that is Jupiter, very close to the midheaven here, in a trine aspect that's 120 degrees from Neptune. And Jupiter trine Neptune, well, let me see, Jupiter trine Neptune. She is very artistic and may choose a career in music, dance, photography, and any endeavor where she capitalizes on her inspiration and aesthetic sensibilities. The person is romantic and spirited. And that is from a book which I occasionally use by James Braha called How to Be a Great Astrologer. And it has natal aspects in it. So, okay, so she has all this tendency for dance and the arts. And indeed, when we look just on a Google image search, look at some of this marvelous movement and the poses and things that she's able to accomplish. So she did not do well in California, where she was born, in Oakland, California, to poverty. She taught neighborhood kids how to dance in her actually in her early teens, and since she couldn't make it in California, she moved to Chicago. Still didn't quite work there. Moved to New York City. She didn't like the ballet. She didn't like the stuff they were doing on Broadway. So when she went to England, she found suddenly that she was in great demand in England. And what that has to do with is that Jupiter is the planet of success and prominence and profit, so to speak. It's very close to the midheaven and is very definitely in the ninth house. The ninth house is the planet, the house of travel. And travel and education. In her case, it was self-education because she only went to school between the ages of 6 and 10. Now I have to go back to this book to tell you about another factor in her life. You may be able to see it here. Let's take a look. Okay, here's her natal Mars. Her natal Mars in 23 degrees of Aquarius is opposite. Oops, let me just scoot that up a little bit. Is opposite planet Uranus in 20 degrees of Leo. Now, Uranus is in, this drives me crazy. Uranus is in the 5th house. The 5th house has to do with children, also has to do with romance and love. And planet Uranus typically makes that kind of those issues in life, those, one's children and one's lovers, kind of gives them kind of a quirky nature, kind of, here today, gone tomorrow. Anarchism in love and in having children. Well, anyway, Mars attacks Uranus across the way here. Mars opposite Uranus. Look it up, and you'll see that it has some problems that go along with it. It says the person is overly independent, individualistic, and unconstrained. She is a nonconformist. She resents any kind of society-imposed morals or standards. She does not take to authority figures and the powers that be. There's an abundance of physical energy. The person may be nervous, irritable, and high-strung. Many people with the Mars-Uranus hard aspects are too easily excitable and therefore accident-prone. So let's just see what that kind of did in terms of her life. Well, she had 3 children by 3 different men, but they were boyfriends, unfortunately. They were not, she never married. And her 2 children, the 2 oldest kids, I think they were like 3 and 6, were in a very unfortunate accident there with their nanny, and the car drove into the Seine in Paris, of course, and they drowned. So she lost those 2 kids. Then she was desperate to have a child, so she got pregnant again, and that one, unfortunately, was a child who was there's one of her with her older kids in 1913, and that child died shortly after birth. So now I was thinking, this is almost too much, because another tragedy followed, and that was her death in 1927 in a situation with her scarf. She was evidently in an open motor car that she was thinking of buying or something, and the scarf, she kind of like threw the scarf out, or either that or the wind caught the scarf, it wrapped around the axle, the wheel, and it dragged her right out of the car and broke her neck. So she died, I guess, pretty much instantly. So what could account for that? The Mars opposite Uranus is certainly accident prone. That kind of thing could conceivably happen. But what else does she have? She has the moon in Scorpio, late Scorpio, in the 8th house, which is the house that's associated with death. The moon also relates to children and babies. The moon is the indicator of motherhood and of children, and of course it's in the house of death. And turns out the moon is in a square, a 90-degree aspect with this Uranus here in the 5th house. And Uranus, remember, has to do with all kinds of unexpected, unusual things happening in relation to both her love life and with her children. And so it lines up with the moon. Now the moon just happens to also be opposite Pluto. We could look all these up. As a matter of fact, if you're intrigued with this, you could just Google this or DuckDuckGo this. You could just put natal moon opposition Pluto, natal moon square Uranus, natal moon square Mars. So you see what we've got here is well, it would be a T-square. This is a grand cross. These 4 planets are opposite each other, and that creates enormous tension. It is exactly the kind of aspect that one would expect for someone who has all her children pass away before her, and who has lovers that never marry her, and who herself is killed in a terrible accident. So, but none of that takes away from her great abilities and her tremendous popularity in the fine arts, in dancing. There was a movie made maybe 25 years ago, I guess, on Isadora Duncan. Maybe there have been several movies made about her life. Fascinating person. Wish I had more time. We could